All right, our fifth story out front. President Obama talking tough in a very serious and aggressive way. It would put a mafioso to shame because while we're waiting for the president to sign the fiscal cliff bill into law, he has drawn a line in the sand for the next, what will be a very ugly and brutish battle over the debt ceiling.
While I will negotiate over many things, I will not have another debate with this Congress over whether or not they should pay the bills that they've already racked up through the laws that they passed.
Now, he's totally right. Congress has already spent the money that it's not going to pay back. But that's not the point. The point is, can he just say, I'm not going to negotiate on it? Is it more rhetoric than reality? Out front tonight, CNN contributor Reihan Salam also writes for the National Review, political analyst Roland Martin, and John Avlon, columnist at Newsweek and The Daily Beast. All right, Roland, we've heard these kinds of promises before from the president. He gets very angry about certain things and says he's just not going to do it. Here he is on the Bush tax cuts that he said he would, $250,000, that's the limit. Here he is.
I'm not going to ask students and seniors and middle-class families to pay down the entire deficit while people like me making over $250,000 aren't asked to pay a dime more in taxes. I'm not going to do that. Now Congress can pass a law that would prevent a tax hike on the first $250,000 of everybody's income. Everybody.
All right, so Roland, you heard him. He said, I'm not going to do that. $250,000 was the limit. He is doing it. He's doing it at $450,000. I'm simply saying you can't say you're not going to negotiate on something that you're going to have to negotiate on, right?
Well, actually, you can. It's called a negotiating position, and we see it all the time. I mean, how many times have you had people, when it comes to negotiating personal contracts, say, I'm not going to take less than this, and then they actually do. And so that's what negotiation is all about. The whole point of having a hardened stance is to force the opposition to come down on theirs. Remember, Speaker Boehner put out a proposal saying taxes on $1 million. Even his own party rejected that. They had no choice but to accept what took place on yesterday. This is what you do in negotiations. You take a hard line, and then, of course, you typically are going to soften it when you get a compromise.
All right. The problem is, Reihan, that now the president has come out and said, and you know, chastised Congress, I would say appropriately. I mean, guys, you can't spend the money and say you don't want to pay it back, but said to them, I'm not going to negotiate on it. Is this just going to embolden them to be even nastier and make it an even bigger stink?
Well, I think part of the issue is that when you look at most of the Republican members of the House, they're coming from safe districts. And so they're really keeping an eye on their potential primary challengers. And that's what emboldens them, really, because they know that what they really have to answer to, they really have to answer to conservative primary voters. There's another tension, however. When you look at President Obama seeming to cave on that $250,000 number, the thing to keep in mind is that a successful political coalition creates problems as well as opportunities. When Barack Obama does really well with those upper middle class voters in the suburbs, that also means you have a lot more tax sensitive voters than you do otherwise. And so that creates tensions for him as well. He's been saying that, hey, I'm going to get more tax increases if I'm going to accept any spending cuts this time around. But the trouble is that there are a lot of Democrats who are quite happy with that $400,000 line as well. So I think that this is going to complicate negotiations, these fractures among Democrats, as well as the hard position of Republicans.
Smart position that he took, or no?
Well, I think it's a tough position. Look, I mean, every compromise is not a cave. But in this specific instance, I mean, the president's telegraphing something very specific, saying he's not going to negotiate around the debt ceiling. Now, as you said in the outset, Erin, look, the debt ceiling is going to come due. And we already know that a lot of Republicans are fully intending to use that as leverage to try to force a grand bargain. But what the president's saying, I think, is saying very clearly, is he's made a political calculation out of the White House that if Republicans want to unilaterally try to hold the nation's full faith and credit hostage and take us over the debt limit and have us default, then they will have to own that politically. And I think as president, he's not only reflecting the lessons he learned from his first term, Erin, I think he's trying to do something also. He's trying to say, look.
Hey, Erin.
Hold on, Roland. I think he's also trying to make a very important point, which is that is a bad precedent. What we went through 500 days ago that led to the downgrading of AAA, that was a dangerous precedent for the United States, and he wants to send the message that will be delinked going forward because we cannot proceed in that way any further.
Roland?
If you go back to what happened last time, they were late in the game in using even President Ronald Reagan's own words when it came to the debt ceiling. I think you're going to see a lot more aggressive tack. And what the president has done, He basically, with the fiscal cliff, said, no, we're only dealing with taxes. With the debt ceiling, he's saying we're only dealing with the debt ceiling. If you want to have a debate when it comes to cuts, then we will deal with that when it comes to sequestration. And so that important piece in the fiscal cliff deal, the 60-day pushing out, that's what he has done. The Republicans have wanted spending cuts to be a part of fiscal cliff and debt ceiling and sequestration. He's saying, no, put it in one area. It's a smart tactical move. We'll see if he's able to keep them at bay.
Just want to remind people that President Obama, when he was Senator Obama, voted against raising the debt limit as well. Opposition parties use the limited leverage that they have, and Barack Obama recognized that in the past, and now that he's on the other side of the negotiating table, he thinks that that should be taken off the table, and that's fair enough. The thing is that this is connected to the sequester deal as well. And so President Obama is going to need goodwill from Republicans if he's going to actually get movement on the sequester as well. So these things are not going to be that easily separated.
Well, but the key is that it's incumbent upon the president to actually move a grand bargain forward, to show follow through on his rhetoric about entitlement reform, to be able to delink them effectively. He's going to have to be aggressive and work with them and offer real entitlement reform to avoid this.
Right, because practically delinking them doesn't make any sense.
Because
right? The debt ceiling they just coming due right around the same time, and they are the same issue.
That's right.
So,
that's right. So he's going to have to reach out early and aggressively to get a grand bargain. Otherwise, we are going to have that game of chicken. And Erin, you know what happened last time. We got downgraded. The whole nation got hurt.
All right. Thanks for your answer to all three of you. And out front next.